Hi and welcome back to video 3 of my liver disease and transplant video blog. And today I want to talk a little bit about the transplant listing process, and not the transplant itself, but what it takes to get onto the list and my experience of the sort of tests they do and the kind of process. So in case you haven't seen my first videos and you've just stumbled across this, my name's Shelley. I have a rare disease, and that has progressed to the point that I have been listed for a liver transplant. So first of all, as I mentioned in my last few videos, I was listed because of an incident I had at the beginning of the year. I had a major gastrointestinal bleed that was caused by high portal tension within the liver, and they had to perform TIPS shunts to take the blood away from my liver. And at that point, although I've had this illness for maybe 15 years now, I've never needed a transplant before this point, and so I've just been monitored and having the kind of medication that I showed in my last video. So once I had this incident and I almost lost my life, I was told by the doctors who had looked after me in intensive care that this was a life-threatening situation that I had been in, and if I hadn't have gone to the hospital, it's very likely that I would have died from the complication. So at that point they decided it was time to start the process of being listed. And you don't just get on a transplant list, so they can't say, okay, you're sick, you need to go on the list. There's a whole lot of things that have to be done prior to even putting you on the list. So for me, start to finish, the transplant process took 5 months roughly. So once I was in hospital with this complication, they started doing the workup for the transplant, and there's lots of different tests that they have to do. So they have to determine if you're mentally and physically capable of surviving a transplant. So the sort of things that they do is, while I was in hospital that first time, so I was still recovering, they started doing the blood work. The sort of tests that they're doing, basically they've done a full blood panel. So they would check the normal things that they check, so sodium levels, chlorine levels, creatinine, bilirubin, AST, ALT, GGT, all the kind of proteins like albumin, globulin, C-reactive proteins. C-reactive protein tells you that you have inflammation somewhere in your body. So lots of diseases, if your CRP is high, it means that you have some kind of autoimmune response going on. So yeah, those are the kind of blood parameters they take, and they're the ones that I get done quite often anyway. So things like my leukocyte count, my erythrocyte count, so how many white blood cells, red blood cells, platelets I have. And those are quite normal for me to have, so I can have those done anywhere between once a week, depending on when you start treatment. You can be having blood tests once a week, and then it goes to once every 2 weeks, and then so and so on. So in the end, the kind of aim is to get you to once every 3 to 6 months. Now that I'm on the transplant list, by law in Switzerland, I have to have a follow-up every 3 months. So my next appointment has arrived, and I will be going back to Zurich on the 18th of December, so just before I fly home to the UK for Christmas. The additional things they looked at were all the kind of, sorry, got really up close and personal then. The kind of things that they looked at were infectious diseases. So I had a kind of full viral panel done. So my IgG levels for HSV, which is herpes simplex virus 1 and 2, HIV, and something called CMV. So CMV is one of those viruses, much like the herpes simplex virus 1, that most humans, or more than half of humans, will get by the end of their life. So something that's very infectious and colonizes humans. Kind of, you're more abnormal if you don't have it than if you do have it for this. And in most people, they pick up this virus somewhere and they will never know that they have this virus. There are no symptoms, no problems, no issues, nothing. But when you're a transplant patient and your immune system is lowered, if you have this CMV virus, and you can get it from the transplant, so if the donor is positive and you're negative, you will get it from the transplant, and that can cause a big problem in transplant patients because your immune system can't fight any kind of infection, or hardly any kind of infection, and CMV becomes very problematic. I don't know too many details, but I know that this is one of the kind of biggest problems that transplant patients have after. And with regards to HIV, when I signed all the forms finally on the day that I got listed, I had to sign a waiver to say that I understood that there was a possibility that I would get HIV from the transplant. And I was told this is very rare. So usually it's the case of, a person has contracted the virus in the few days prior to their death, and then they have an accident or whatever, and they then have their organs harvested, and the tests don't pick up that virus. So I think times have moved on since I was at university. I have a degree in molecular biology and genetics, but I remember that HIV sometimes isn't detectable medically till 6 months out. So you would normally, if you go to a screening clinic and you get screened for HIV, you normally have your test then, and then one 3 months later and one 6 months later. And only after the 6 months do you get the all clear. So you have kind of quite a long rate. I'm sure that there are better tests now, but they're still not instantaneous. So you have this possibility after transplant that you could contract HIV. And in the case of Switzerland, if you don't sign that waiver, you're not going to get a liver, because you have to sign it. You don't have a choice. You don't get on the transplant list unless you are aware and okay with that. But yeah, so I had all these viral things done, and that was the blood work. And then as well as the blood work, you have lots of other tests. So you have to have an MRI of the head to make sure you have no kind of cancerous tumours, no neurological problems. You have to have a CT scan, I think a full body MRI, ultrasounds, you have to see a dentist even. I have actually the timetable. So they did half the tests while I was in hospital with the complication, and the other half I went back for a full week. I was in an inpatient for a week while they did this second lot of testing. So this was the timetable I was given. There's actually not so much on there, but a lot of it, like I said, they had done before, and it's in German, so I don't know what a lot of it is. But you have an EKG, an echocardiogram. I had to see a cardiologist, so I had to have my heart fully tested and give them the all clear. So I did that on an outpatient's visit. I had to have a gastroscopy and an endoscopy. So one is the camera down the throat into the stomach, and the other is the camera the other way. So this is one of those things where your dignity goes, because actually the endoscopy itself is not a problem. You're sedated, you go in, you fall asleep, you wake up, it's done. You know, you have no idea what's going on, you can't be embarrassed. But the stress beforehand is not so fun, and the laxatives that they give you beforehand to prepare your intestines for your colonoscopy. I think I saw on the internet them described as the sort of thing you need to install a seatbelt onto your toilet before you use, which tells you something about how fun that is. So too much information, as usual. Welcome to the world of having a chronic disease. And then if that doesn't quite work, you also get an enema at the hospital just before the endoscopy, and guess who that happened to? I love my life. So yeah, that's that. Then you also have to see a psychiatrist. So you have to show that you're mentally prepared to go through the waiting period, which is obviously very emotionally intense, because you don't know if you're going to get a liver, you don't know when, you know that you're going to get sicker. Every time I get sick, I tend to have a bit of a depressive period, because I wonder if this is the best I'm ever going to feel again, until I get transplanted, and who knows when that will be. And then you also need to show that you're willing to adhere to the medication after, that you will treat the organ with respect, that you will look after your body, and also that you're prepared to receive someone else's organ. So there's a lot of mental stuff that you have to go through, and actually I've continued to see the psychiatrist to talk through the stress, to learn stress management, and kind of just go through any issues that I'm having. So they set up some support groups for you so that you can kind of be supported through the transplantation process. And also hopefully they will arrange for me to meet another transplant patient, so I can kind of ask them, you know, what was your experience like? What were the really fun things that happened? And how's your life now? And all those questions, which hopefully this blog will be able to answer for somebody in the future. But for me, I haven't found a blog like this about my particular situation, so always good to be the first, although there's probably someone out there somewhere doing it, I just haven't found them. I think that's everything, although I've probably missed out quite a lot. But in my case it took 5 months. I think it can be a bit quicker, but in Switzerland there's the main hospitals are Unispital Basel, which is my primary hospital, Unispital Zurich, and then Geneva and Bern. So as far as I'm aware, they're the kind of 4 main hospitals where transplantation happens, and each don't have a license for everything. So actually Basel only have a license to do kidney transplants. So obviously I can't have my liver transplant done there. And Zurich is the biggest hospital, and it does almost all of the transplants. None of the hospitals do all of them. And so my transplant will take place in Zurich. So there was a little bit of time, I think, that other people won't experience, where the different tests had to be collated into a report, which obviously would happen anyway, but then it had to be sent to the new hospital in Zurich, and then the doctors there had to be familiar with my case, and then I had to go and meet them for the first time. They repeated some of the tests, so I had to see their psychologist, I had to have more blood taken, and I was supposed to have an ultrasound, but that didn't happen for some reason. And then I met with the head of the liver unit. So, and then the second visit I had, I met with the transplant coordinator, signed all the forms. But the kind of process was, for me, it was being told that I needed to be listed, then having all the different tests done, then being called to the transplant centre, meeting the transplant team, and at that visit I was given a lot of information, all of it in German, so I can't read it, so my poor boyfriend is on translation duty. but there was information for living donors. There was information about the transplant process. So I haven't actually read through all of it yet. I'm still kind of working through it because there's quite a lot of information that I was given. So obviously, because I have to wait for someone to translate it for me, it takes a bit more time than if I had been given information in English. So there's information for me, there's information for family. I need to also, I was given contact information for the transplant coordinators. I had to give 5 different numbers for the coordination team to be able to reach me on. So I gave my work number, my mobile number, my boyfriend's mobile number, a mobile number of my friends, and then the admin at work to kind of cover all bases. And it was a bit of an excuse, but I also bought myself a Apple Watch so that because I was told I have to be on call 24/7, because if you miss the call, which could come in at any time, it could be in the middle of the night, then you will miss the organ. So yeah, one thing I was told, I have to be on call 24/7, and I was told that if I have any questions, I can contact the coordinator by phone or by email. And then the process when they actually give me the call is that they will send an ambulance to me, which actually I wasn't expecting. But yeah, once I get the call, they send an ambulance which picks me up and takes me directly to the hospital. So I don't have to worry about travelling, because obviously I'm not in the same city. It's about an hour and a half away by train or car, and then if there's traffic, I think you just get like a 4-hour window slot that you can get to the hospital. But again, it depends on the organ and what they're doing for it. And if I'm too far, so if I'm at the other end of the country, like in Geneva or whatever, they'll send a helicopter. So spending all my weekends in Geneva from now on, because I want the helicopter. But yeah, so they'll send an ambulance. I don't actually have to worry about getting myself there. So that means at some point I will probably start going absolutely everywhere with a suitcase, so that I have my essentials packed for the hospital. Okay, so I think that's going to be it for today. If I think of any more information that I need to give, I will do a follow-up video. Anything new I learn, I will put in subsequent videos, and then try and do a very short summary video at some point. So I hope you guys all have a good week. If you found this video interesting, give me a thumbs up to encourage me, because at the moment I'm not sure if anybody is actually finding this interesting. I have a few comments on Facebook which seem very positive, but yeah, give me that thumbs up just to reiterate that this is useful. And yeah, so I will see you next time, and have a good week or weekend or whenever it is that you are. So bye for now.